Hi there, everyone. It's 4 o'clock in New York. Exactly 5 years and 16 days after the January 6th insurrection at the actual scene of the crime, the American public heard for the very first time the fruits of their government's criminal investigation into Donald Trump. Lifelong career prosecutor Jack Smith, who prior to investigating Donald Trump, brought cases against Democrats and Republicans, calmly and dispassionately answered questions from lawmakers that ranged from the inquisitive to the ludicrous. Today's testimony amounts to the most thorough accounting of the criminal cases against Donald Trump for his efforts to overturn an election and end the tradition of a peaceful transfer of power in the United States of America. Jack Smith came into this hearing today as a political target for Republicans. They barely let him speak at times. They interrupted him with absurd conspiracy theories and whataboutism better suited for Fox News. But when Jack Smith did get a chance to speak uninterrupted, he was crystal clear. He said he had full confidence in his cases, the ones he was ready to bring to trial against Donald Trump. Relying on the facts of those investigations, he pushed back against the conspiracy theory that the Justice Department or the justice system was somehow weaponized against Donald Trump. That, of course, is the basis for Donald Trump's entire retribution campaign against the rule of law and law enforcement.
My review of the case, I came to the conclusion we had proof beyond a reasonable doubt. We were ready, willing, and able to go to trial in the case. Of course, as I said in my opening statement, prosecutors can't control outcomes, but I felt confident in pursuing the case to trial.
Proof beyond a reasonable doubt that Donald Trump was guilty. At points, Jack Smith pulled the curtain back on his investigation as best as he was able to, saying that Donald Trump's statements about the cases did intimidate the witnesses.
Did you have any evidence that President Trump's statements about the cases against him intimidated witnesses or prevented them from coming forward?
I had evidence that he said, if you come after me, I'm coming after you. He suggested a witness should be put to death. The courts found that those sort of statements not only deter witnesses who've come forward, they deter witnesses who've yet to come forward.
But you weren't able to identify a single witness who didn't come forward because they were intimidated by President Trump.
We had extremely thorough evidence that his statements were having an effect on the proceedings that is not permitted in any court of law in the United States.
Don't you think it's a pretty low bar to clear if you're trying to silence a candidate for president? I mean, if you can't identify a single witness who's intimidated, that maybe you should reconsider the gag order?
Both courts upheld the orders, and it is not incumbent on a prosecutor to wait until someone gets killed before they move for an order to protect the proceedings.
It's not incumbent to wait for someone to get killed. Scattered throughout Jack Smith's testimony today, a clear warning for all of us about the current state of the rule of law in this country and exactly where things are heading. Jack Smith said it would be catastrophic if the most powerful people in our country are not held to the same legal standard as everybody else. As for himself, he says that Donald Trump's attacks on him, which were ongoing while he was testifying, will not stop him. Watch.
Trump has said that you, Mr. Smith, should be investigated and put in prison. He called you a disgrace to humanity, a radical left Marxist, a criminal. In fact, Trump has used the words deranged Jack Smith 185 times on Truth Social. How do you think that these statements have impacted you, your staff, and your investigation?
With respect to me, I think the statements are meant to intimidate me. I will not be intimidated. I think these statements are also made as a warning to others what will happen if they stand up. And I am, as I say, I'm not going to be intimidated. We did our work pursuant to department policy. We followed the facts and we followed the law, and that process resulted in proof beyond a reasonable doubt that he committed serious crimes. I'm not going to pretend that didn't happen because he's threatening me.
And Mr. Smith, do you believe that President Trump's Department of Justice will find some way to indict you?
I believe that they will do everything in their power to do that because they've been ordered to by the president.
And seeming to want to prove Jack Smith's point there, Donald Trump posted in the last hour exactly what Jack Smith warned about, a call to prosecute Jack Smith, claiming without any evidence that Jack Smith committed, quote, large-scale perjury during his testimony today. Special counsel Jack Smith testifying for the very first time in public on Capitol Hill is where we start today. Joining me for the hour, former top official at the Department of Justice, legal analyst Andrew Weissman is here, plus former lead investigator for the January 6th Select Committee. Tim Hafey is back with us. He is a partner at the law firm Hafey Smith, as in Jack Smith, Harbach and Wyndham. As I said, the Smith being Jack Smith. Also joining us, Democracy Docket founder, voting rights attorney Mark Elias, and senior political analyst Alex Wagner joins us. She's a contributing host on Pod Save America, and she is the host of the podcast Runaway Country. I want to start, though, with Democratic Congressman Dan Goldman of New York. He's a member of the Judiciary Committee. He took part in the questioning of Jack Smith today. Start by telling me what the most important thing was that the public learned from Jack Smith today.
Well, I think perhaps the most important thing was just to see his demeanor. His demeanor did not change from start to finish, Democrat or Republican. And that is the demeanor of a professional, career, apolitical prosecutor. And you can see why so many people who were former prosecutors rave about him as the prosecutor's prosecutor. And this notion that he would have conducted a political investigation is so preposterous. And as it started coming out, of course, he had no conversations with President Biden. He had no conversations with the White House. He got no direction from Merrick Garland. So then it just goes on whether Jack Smith himself had political motivations. He didn't even know whether he was registered to vote. He is so apolitical that it's just not even a consideration for him. He reiterated numerous times that he has charged Democrats, he has charged Republicans, and he has decided not to charge Democrats and not to charge Republicans, and that politics and partisanship do not play a role. And ultimately, that is what Donald Trump's allegations have been. The Republicans were all over the map, as you say, trying to come up with some good Newsmax or Fox News clip about the constitutionality of his appointment or some, other stuff that just seemed so beside the point. But what was clear is it was apolitical, and he had overwhelming evidence that Donald Trump himself knew that the election was not stolen, and yet perpetrated this massive conspiracy to overturn it in any event.
What's also clear, I mean, you and I have been watching the conduct of Donald Trump and the Republicans in the body in which you now serve for a decade. They'll study our brains when we're dead. But they're acting like this was the worst day in the world for Donald Trump, because it is the worst nightmare for Donald Trump for a man like Jack Smith to say he had proof beyond a reasonable doubt that Donald Trump was guilty of the crimes he charged him with. I thought the most devastating thing for Donald Trump was that even now that he's president, Jack Smith said today he would bring the very same case again tomorrow if asked to. Let me play that part of his testimony.
I stand by my decisions as special counsel, including the decision to bring charges against President Trump. Our investigation developed proof beyond a reasonable doubt that President Trump engaged in criminal activity. If asked whether to prosecute a former president based on the same facts today, I would do so regardless of whether that president was a Democrat or a Republican. No one should be above the law in this country, and the law required that he be held to account, so that is what I did. To have done otherwise on the facts of these cases would have been to shirk my duties as a prosecutor and as a public servant, of which I had no intention of doing. I remain grateful for the counsel, judgment, and advice of my team. President Trump has sought to seek revenge against career prosecutors, FBI agents, and support staff simply for having worked on these cases. To vilify and seek retribution against these people is wrong. Those dedicated public servants are the best of us, and it has been a privilege to serve with them.
Congressman, he is the most senior former leader of the Merrick Garland Justice Department to say that, to defend the men and women who've been purged from the FBI in droves, in numbers that experts worry leave us vulnerable on the national security front. The most senior former Justice Department official to say that the prosecutors being targeted for being parts of these cases, being punished. He's defending their integrity in this very public space, calling out Republicans for, quote, vilifying and seeking retribution against them. Why is that important? Why was that important to him, do you think?
Well, I think I can say with a lot of certainty that Jack Smith holds a lot of pride in the people who work under him and takes responsibility for them and feels responsible for them. And that's what great leaders do. That's what great prosecutors do. And so he, as he said himself, he won't be intimidated, but he's worried about everybody else who's losing their job and getting death threats, and all just because they did their job. Let's be real. They did their job. Theoretically, if there's a problem with this investigation, it's Jack Smith. It's not the people who worked under him. And yet Donald Trump's pursuit of retribution and revenge has no bounds, and it has gone after so many of the agents and the prosecutors who worked on those investigations. And I would just add at the end here, Nicolle, he couldn't even talk about Volume 2, the classified documents case. And there is undoubtedly a lot of information in that volume that we don't know about that is
Everything in their power to do that because they've been ordered to by the president.
That's very concerning, obviously.
David, did you hear anything today that might be concerning in regards to the president trying to prosecute him?
Katie, I think we just saw a redux today of Trump's playbook in these kinds of tweets that are not thinly veiled directives to the Attorney General of the United States and his personal attorney, Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General, to investigate and bring charges against the president's critics and perceived enemies. And it's going to find the same fate, if that proceeds, that has been seen in the prosecutions of James Comey and Letitia James. So far, they'll be dead on arrival as classic instances of vindictive prosecution. The president can't restrain himself from speaking in the ways that he did today. It's precisely the kind of fodder and evidentiary ammo that a defense attorney, was keen to get in front of a court to support a motion to dismiss on grounds of selective prosecution, and with some increasing success.
He was also asked today about what he would worry about come the 2026, 2028 elections. And he said he wants people in positions of the DOJ who are nonpartisan actors who adhere to the law. That's a question I would ask of you as well, given what we're witnessing with this DOJ and the president's not so thinly demands by his attorney general to prosecute the people that he believes have wronged him. What are you expecting come the midterms? What are you expecting come the next presidential election?
Sadly, I'm expecting the president of the United States to do everything he can to subvert free and fair elections in November. He hates to lose. I don't think he could bear the prospect of a Democratic-led House of Representatives that has subpoena power, the power to launch impeachment proceedings if it wanted to, and he has no guardrails. I mean, at least 4 years ago, there were some guardrails, but now there are none, except for, federal judges, many of whom have done the right thing and not allowed this kind of authoritarian abuse to go unchecked. But it's not about winning cases, of course, for this president. It's just about inflicting harm and havoc on individuals in our country and on the Constitution. So I expect the worst is ahead. The worst is ahead. And all bets are off this November. So all of us who care about the rule of law, who care about a pluralist democratic society, have to do everything we can peacefully to mobilize for that prospect and make sure it does not eventuate.
What about the ranks at DOJ? Not the political people, not the people who, there's been a lot of folks that have been fired, but are you confident in those who remain?
I'm confident in the willingness of career people to continue to do the right thing, even when they put themselves in harm's way. There is indescribable demoralization of the workforce. Career attorneys throughout the department, including the National Security Division where I worked, the FBI. What I worry about is agents and prosecutors declining to take on hard cases because of what they have seen befall their colleagues, many of whom have been fired or mistreated, relegated to backwater operations of the Justice Department or the FBI. And that chilling effect is hard to measure, but we're hearing more and more about it. Of course, they're not going to be asked to take on positions that prosecutors like Jack Smith and his career team would, because they're not going to be allowed to take on any cases that are adverse to this president, including holding him in check, the way they would hold any office holder in check if they violated the rule of law.
All right, everyone, we're going to take a really quick break. Don't go anywhere. More on our special coverage of Jack Smith's testimony to the House Judiciary Committee after just a couple minutes.
At least a D-. I did not think a C would even be like in the equation. So, I mean, look, and when you look at the record, that reaction starts to make sense a little bit. So let's walk through what defined year one of Trump 2.0. All right. First, political retaliation. I mean, the administration has backed investigations and legal pressure targeting perceived enemies, including New York Attorney General Letitia James, former FBI Director James Comey, and others. So supporters call it accountability, which I think is ridiculous. Everybody else is calling it something else, like weaponization of the DOJ. That's what I call it. So you got to ask yourself this: should the justice system, feel like a political weapon? Oh, and then there's civil rights. Okay, so core anti-discrimination protections under, federal employment rules were rolled back, I think 60 years, weakening safeguards that had existed again for 60 years. The administration argues this restores balance. Civil rights groups warn it opened a door to inequality treatment at work. And when protections disappear quietly, who notices first? And who really pays the price later? Transparency has also become a major fault line. The administration promised openness around the Epstein files. What followed was nothing but delays, missed timelines, limited releases, complete and utter pages being redacted, and legal resistance. And that has drawn backlash, not just from Democrats, but from conservatives who expected full disclosure. So if transparency only applies when it's convenient, does it really even exist? Now let's talk about healthcare, because this is where policy choices hit home. Medicaid and Medicare saw cuts, and the national LGBTQ plus suicide prevention hotline was shut down. Supporters frame this as budget discipline. Okay. Families and advocates see something very different. What does, physical responsibility mean when help disappears during a crisis? Economically, year one brought disruptions. New tariffs were imposed with broad effects on consumers and businesses. And at the same time, tax changes tilted towards higher earners. So the result, prices stayed high, uncertainty grew, and everyday Americans felt little to no relief. So if the economy is working like they say it is, why does it feel so freaking expensive to live in it? Then there's this extremism and corruption concerns. The administration issues pardons to figures convicted of serious crimes, including crypto scammers and foreign drug traffickers. Oh, and then some fraudster from California that he actually, I think, pardoned his first term as well for the exact same thing. And then they still did it again, and then you had to pardon him again. What the heck? Law enforcement leadership was reshaped along with political lines. Supporters say this is, restoring loyalty. Come on. Critics warn that it erodes independence. What happens when the line between justice and politics gets blurry? Now look at what didn't get fixed. Healthcare, affordability, remained unresolved. ACA subsidies expired with no replacement, raising costs for millions of Americans, and the cost of living, groceries, housing, basic basically barely moved, or it's getting worse. If people are still struggling at the checkout line, what really changed? So when Americans hand out a C-, which again I think should be at least a D-, after year one, it's not coming from nowhere. I mean, it reflects a pattern. Retaliation over reform, power over protection, disruption without relief. This isn't